Have you ever promised yourself something and then quietly broke that promise? I'll start Monday. I'll wake up earlier. I'll get back to the gym. Nobody argued with you. Nobody stopped you. You simply didn't do it. Now here's the question almost no one asks. What happens when the person you stop trusting is yourself? Most people think the answer is simple. You lose discipline. But that's not what happens first. Something much more important disappears before discipline ever does. And until you get it back, no morning routine, productivity app, motivational speech, or life hack will ever fix the problem. Because this isn't really a story about discipline, it's a story about trust. The kind of trust nobody realizes they're losing. Imagine it's Monday morning. Your alarm goes off. For a few seconds, you remember the promise you made on Sunday night. This week will be different. You even pictured it. You'd wake up early, exercise, eat better, and finally catch up on everything you've been putting off. Your hand reaches toward the alarm. Just 10 more minutes, then 30, then an hour. Eventually, you get out of bed. The day's already started, and somehow, it already feels like you're behind. Most people think this is where discipline failed. It isn't. Something much quieter happened. Your brain noticed something. Not that you slept in, not that you skipped one workout. It noticed that your actions disagreed with your words. That might not sound important, but your brain treats that moment like evidence. And here's why that matters. We spend so much of our lives worrying about what other people think. Will my friends understand me? Do strangers online approve of me? But here is a much more uncomfortable question to ask instead. Does my own mind believe me anymore? Think about your closest friend. Imagine they promised to help you move, then canceled. They promised to call. They forgot. They promised they'd show up. They never did. Would you hate them? Probably not. But little by little, you'd stop believing their words. Not because of one broken promise, because of the pattern. Now think about that. Why would your own brain work any differently? Every promise you keep sends your brain one message. I'm someone who follows through. Every promise you break sends another. Maybe my words don't really matter. And the strange part, this happens so quietly. Most people never notice it's happening at all. Instead, they notice something else. Their confidence disappears. But confidence isn't the problem either. It's the symptom. The real problem started much earlier, and it has nothing to do with motivation. Now look at your own life for a second. How many times have you believed the solution was more motivation? Another YouTube video, another productivity book, another habit tracker. We've been taught that disciplined people simply feel more motivated. But look closely at the most disciplined person you know. Do you really think they wake up excited every single morning? Do they enjoy every workout, every difficult conversation, every early alarm? Of course they don't. So what's different? This is where people get the story completely backwards. They think disciplined people take action because they feel motivated. In reality, they stopped waiting to feel motivated in the first place. And long before modern psychology explained why, the Stoics had already noticed something remarkable. They believed character wasn't built during extraordinary moments. It was built during ordinary ones. Not when life felt exciting, when it didn't. Not when people were watching, when nobody was. That sounds simple, but it changes everything. Because if that's true, then maybe you've been trying to build discipline the wrong way all along. And the biggest mistake people make? They start with one word: tomorrow. Tomorrow sounds harmless. It's only one word. But think about how often it's quietly shaped your life. I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll eat better. Tomorrow I'll call my parents. The strange thing about tomorrow is that it always feels responsible. It never feels like giving up. It feels like you're making a sensible decision. I'm just tired today. I'll be more motivated tomorrow. But tomorrow has a secret. It doesn't just delay your actions. It slowly rewrites your identity. Because every time you postpone something you already decided was important, your brain learns another lesson. When things become uncomfortable, we wait. Not fight, not adapt. wait. And the more often you repeat that pattern, the more natural it becomes. One day you wake up and wonder, why can't I stay consistent? But consistency didn't disappear overnight. It faded one tomorrow at a time. But the story doesn't end there. Have you ever noticed how keeping promises to other people often feels easier than keeping promises to yourself? If you promised a friend you'd pick them up from the airport at 6 a.m., you'd probably show up, even if you were tired, even if you didn't feel like it. Why? Because your word means something. Now imagine treating your own promises with that same level of respect. Not because you're trying to become more productive, because you're becoming someone whose word has value. That changes everything. Even the Stoics weren't trying to teach people how to become successful. They were trying to teach people how to become trustworthy. Not trustworthy to society, trustworthy to themselves. One of the core Stoic ideas is that character isn't something you inherit, it's something you practice. Every choice is a rehearsal. Every action is a vote. Every ordinary day is quietly deciding who you'll become. Think about that. Right now, while you're watching this video, your future self is being shaped. Not tomorrow, not next month, right now. That's both terrifying and incredibly hopeful at the same time, because it means you don't have to change your entire life today. You only have to win the decision that's in front of you. But knowing all of this still leaves one important problem. How do you actually rebuild that trust? People think rebuilding trust requires making bigger promises, bigger goals, bigger changes. It doesn't. In fact, that's usually what breaks trust all over again. The answer is surprisingly small. Keep one promise, every day, just one. It sounds too simple. That's exactly why most people ignore it. But your brain doesn't measure the size of a promise. It measures whether you kept it. Reading 2 pages, going to bed when you said you would, that's it. To your brain, every kept promise sends the same message. I'm someone who follows through. And yet, most of you who are watching this video will forget this idea by next week. Not because it doesn't work, because they'll try to improve it. They'll turn one promise into 5, 5 into 10. They'll convince themselves they're finally changing their lives. Then one difficult day arrives, and everything falls apart. Not because they're weak or lazy, because they were trying to build 10 habits before proving they could keep one. But when you stop trying to change your entire life, something unexpected happens. You stop chasing a new identity and quietly start building one. Not through motivation, through evidence. Because little by little, you become someone who keeps their word. And after a while, the promise itself stops being important. The person making it becomes important. At first, you're trying to build a habit. Then the habit quietly begins rebuilding you. One ordinary promise, repeated on ordinary days, quietly creates an extraordinary person. Then, you stop negotiating with yourself. You don't ask, should I do it today? Because the decision was already made by the person you've become. Maybe that's why discipline has always felt so far away. You weren't missing willpower, you were missing proof. So don't leave this video trying to change your life. Leave it trying to keep one promise. Don't make the promise bigger. Instead, make yourself more believable by keeping one small promise to yourself every single day. And one day, you'll stop looking for discipline. Because discipline was never the destination, trust was. And once you trust yourself, discipline quietly follows. Every promise you break changes what you do. Every promise you keep changes who you believe you are. And in a world obsessed with finding the perfect system, become someone who simply keeps their word. Because that's something no algorithm, no app, and no shortcut can ever do for you. I'll see you in the next video.